Hi, everybody. Cindy Skalicki here with On Point. I am here with Alison Proffit, and we are doing today's episode of Getting to the Point with Alison Proffit. Alison, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Cindy. Thank you for having me. How are you?
You are. I'm doing great. It's so good to see you again, and I'm really happy to have you on. As our audience knows from seeing a few episodes now, here's where we sit down with an expert in his or her field, and we just kind of get to the point of some of the things that make them awesome. And then we wrap with a rapid fire 5-question little game, if you will, to get to know you a little bit better on a personal level.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So for the audience, I just want to explain a little bit about how Alison and I met. We met in February of this year at one of the local Startup Week conferences here, and I learned about Alison and her love of helping people with sales messaging. So we had a connection already just because we both work with types of messaging. And Alison kind of she's a very good saleswoman because she has always found a way to kind of loop me into a conversation. And I don't mean that in any negative way, but she's intriguing. She's very authentic. She tells her story just like it is, and she's very good at what she does. So Alison, why don't you give us a quick snapshot of what it is that you do, maybe a little about your background, and then we'll ask you a few questions about sales messaging.
Perfect. My business is Proffit Coach, and I'm a sales coach, consultant, and trainer. And the business really launched after I had 4 failed attempts in starting my own business successfully. So, my background in my career actually was in human resources. I did that for 15 plus years. So, I worked a lot in the corporate world and became a certified professional coach. And then, after my certification was completed, the universe kicked me to the curb and I was let go from my HR job 3 weeks after my certification was completed.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of like the world was like, okay, now go do
Yes.
business.
Here you
so,
go. Here's your
and
entry.
yeah, here's your entry. And then I actually had a lot of personal experiences between 2017 and 2019 when I started Profit Coach. I moved across the country. I've had 9 addresses since then. I've lost 4 jobs. I changed careers twice, started and failed 4 businesses, and went through a divorce. So a lot of becoming is what I describe. I did a lot of becoming and understanding, what do I want in my life? What do I want in my business? The last career change I had, I worked at Constant Contact, which is a digital marketing company, and they hired me as a salesperson, which I kind of thought, this is weird. I've never done sales. Why would they hire me? But they saw a lot of skills that I had, and they thought, we can teach you to be a great salesperson. And I know we've had this conversation before, just like with public speaking, anybody can be a great public speaker. And I think anybody can be a great salesperson. And I demonstrated that through this job. I was a great salesperson and I started to be successful right away. So I worked there for a year and then launched Profit Coach and started being successful really quickly. And people were like, how are you doing that? And I started with marketing strategy, but then very quickly realized I should be teaching people sales because we've got these small business owners that are doing a lot to generate leads. They're having coffee meetings and they're building funnels, but they're still not closing sales consistently.
Right.
And I thought, oh my gosh, I have a lot of business acumen and knowledge and experience. I have the marketing skills. I have these sales skills. And then it's the mindset stuff. I think sales is like maybe 85% mindset, and then a little bit of the skill of sales, and then your expertise in whatever it is that you do in your business.
Yep.
And I did mindset like in coaching and development through my HR career. So that's my jam. Helping people block through what's going on up here and then
Mhm.
giving them some skills and techniques and the how and what to say, and then watch them just kind of like blossom into this
Yeah.
like, beautiful person that knows how to sell to bring their gifts to the world. I
Mhm.
mean, it's so magical. I just love it so
Yes.
much.
Oh, I love it. Awesome. Thank you for that intro. All
Yeah.
right, I'm going to cut right to the chase.
Yes.
When I think of sales, or when I used to think about sales, and when a lot of people hear the word sales, they think about the sleazy salesperson or the pushy salesperson. We can all kind of make that caricature in our head. So help me out. What is it about that kind of salesperson that makes us, or maybe I'll ask this a different way. What is that person doing wrong? When, that's such a bad image that I know you want to kind of reverse. So what is that kind of a salesperson who's really pushy and just kind of, what are they doing wrong, and how would you kind of reroute that person?
Yeah. So I'm gonna say they're not necessarily doing anything wrong because obviously
Okay.
that's working for them.
Okay.
But there's another way. What they might be doing is they might not be able to have a lot of repeat sales, right? Because
Okay.
they're selling and they're obviously successful at it. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be in sales. But they might be breaking down relationships. So they may not necessarily have a lot of repeat business, a lot of referrals and things like that because they're selling in a way that is contracting to most of us. We're not feeling connected with that person. And
Right.
so this is where the mindset stuff that I do is tied to the energy and how we're approaching that sales conversation. So you can be a driving, pushy salesperson and make sales, or you can be a person who is detached from the outcome of getting the sale and
Mm-hmm.
focusing on the connection and
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that you're leading with your values as well as the values of the person or organization on the other side. And I like to say that sales is an act of fill in the blank of what your core value is. One of my core values is connection. So for me, sales is an act of connection.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's so relationships, right? I mean, it's all about
Yeah.
relationships. So you've kind of touched on the mindset part of how people need to think differently a little bit. And I think, right, have more confidence in themselves and in their abilities and in the product that they've built so that they see the value. I know I've heard from coaches I've talked with too, just believe it. It's great. It
That's
is
right.
amazing work. What you're doing, it is of value. So can you take us into the sales conversation and share any thoughts, or maybe a tip, or something that we could take away from today about how to improve your sales conversation there?
Yeah, definitely. So some of what I teach is actually about the components of a sales conversation. And that's not something unique that I've developed. There's a customer discovery, you're recapping, you're presenting the value, you're asking for the sale. But there are three components that I think are really important throughout your whole entire sales conversation. And those are clarity, confidence, and connection.
Mm,
So the clarity is
ABC.
yeah, exactly. So the clarity is having clarity on like what you need to know from that person to create the connection. So having clarity on what questions do you ask in a discovery portion of your call. And then having that clarity on what is the value presentation, like what is the need that the client has, what is the feature that your product or service provides, and what is the benefit that they'll get by going through your process.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have clarity on that, you can then listen for that need in your discovery so that when you get to the point to pitch, you're really confident in the pitch because you've already thought about what are the various needs, because you don't want to overcomplicate your sales conversations or your value
Right.
presentation because people are already overwhelmed by whatever the problem is that you might be speaking with them about. So you don't want to give them 20 features.
Exactly. I mean, and I'll just, so Allison has helped me with some of my own sales conversations in the last month or so. And one of the gems of our work together has been the value of listening first. And I'm always prone to listening. I think I like to listen. I know the value of it, but I think that a lot of people assume when they're in a sales conversation that their job is to tell the other about stuff that they're product or service does and list all these things prior to really getting at the heart of the need the person has and how can you fill that. So I have really appreciated the pieces you've taught me and been slowly getting better at, you know, making sure to leave that space and to gain the clarity around what does this client need with regard to messaging help. Do they need a full-on course or just maybe a quick rehearsal with me? Do they need
Right.
something in the middle? So I'm getting a lot better at listening and clarifying. So would this help you or would this help you? Because I can do a number of things, but what do you need now? And then maybe that builds later if it's a small thing at first, and then it can grow. So
right. And I want to highlight something else that I think comes from a place of confidence of how do you make sure that you're retaining control of the conversation? Because sometimes what happens is people will get to a point where they'll say, well, great, well, what do you do and how much is it?
yep.
And we get kind of frozen like a deer in headlights if we haven't kind of worked through what does that sound like and what do we do in that moment to bring the control of the conversation back over to your side. Because if you don't have enough of the clarity and understand the why of what they do or why this pain point is something they need to solve, if you don't have that yet, and then you start talking about pricing and packages, when it comes to getting their buy-in before you ask for that sale, you don't have the information that you might need in order to finish it out strong. And so it's just kind of, and that comes from a place of just confidence and knowing how to do that is one of the things that I've found that people really struggle with. And it makes sense that they struggle with because they don't want to, then they freeze like deer in the headlights and they're like, I don't want to be a slimy salesperson. So I'll just give them what they're asking for.
No, you know, and it's like anything else, it's learn as you go and learn from your failures, because there's a few things I've lost in the last few months that are opportunities that I really wanted, but they didn't come through. And I look back in hindsight and think, gosh, I should have gone with my gut and done this different piece this way or whatever. But having that awareness to know that you should learn from that mistake is part one. A lot of people might skip that step, and then that's a loss of learning. So you want to make sure if you're losing sales, think about why and consider, you know, what kind of help you might need, like from someone like Alison to sharpen that skill set. So Alison, I have 3 rapid fire questions, and then I want to ask you how people can find you, and if they want sales help in any number of ways, what they could do to learn more. Are you ready?
I'm ready, I think.
Okay. Question number 1. What book is on your bedside table or your proverbial bedside table, like in right now? And is there one tip that you have learned you'd like to share?
Oh, okay. So the book is called Compassionate Samurai. Sorry, I don't remember who wrote it. Not so great at remembering those things, but The Compassionate Samurai. And it talks about these different values that you have and like embodying and living these values in a way where you're like honoring yourself so that you can then become that kind of compassionate person that you want to be in the world to be really successful.
Nice. Okay, The Compassionate Samurai. We'll make sure to mark that down. Question number 2, I'm going completely a new direction. Is there a special family recipe that has made it through numbers of generations that is a family favorite for your family?
Oh gosh. Yes. So there is, and I don't know how far back it goes, but there's a cake recipe that my grandmother, my mom, we called her on my mom's side, always made. And it's called Ralph's Cake. Ralph, like the name Ralph.
Okay.
And it's this amazing chocolate cake, and it's made in a round bundt pan. So, you know, it's got like the hole in the middle.
Yeah.
And there's this cream cheese icing.
Oh, it sounds amazing.
It is so good. It's almost like a chocolate pound cake kind of thing, but it's so good. It's so good.
If they share the recipe, I would love to try it because I'm a huge fan of chocolate and icing of any kind. So
I've never made it. I've never made it. I feel like I should try to make it. So maybe I'll maybe I'll try to make it here at the high altitude in Colorado.
Yeah.
My whole family is
Oh,
back in Pennsylvania on the East Coast.
okay.
So
Right. Right. Well, sounds delicious. Thank you
it's
for
so
sharing.
good.
Always makes me hungry at this point in the show. Okay, last question. A really super influential mentor or teacher from your past. What did that person do for you?
So I had a boss. So I had a dotted line reporting relationship to two different bosses. And this was my day-to-day boss. His name is Ken Byler. He was the executive director at a long-term care facility I worked at.
Okay.
And he was the best leader I ever worked with.
Wow.
And it was because as an HR professional, it's often hard to get a seat at the table.
Mm.
And he always brought me to the table.
Mm.
And he valued my input and what I brought as an HR professional. And it was him that encouraged me to pursue my coaching certification.
Oh, good. Wow.
And so he definitely was a great mentor to me and always made me feel valued, even when I felt like I was tail spinning.
Mm.
He would
Well,
acknowledge
happens
and
to the best
validate.
of us. Yeah.
Greatest boss I've ever had. Yeah,
That's awesome. He sounds like a great leader who exhibited a lot of great leadership characteristics that I'm sure
absolutely.
you would like to model as well. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. Thanks for sharing those personal touches. Okay,
Yeah.
Alison, if people want to join, I know you have a mastermind that you run. Can you tell a little bit about that and give your contact info before we close?
Absolutely. Yes. So it's called the Sales Success Mastermind for people who don't like selling. So very
Perfect.
clear title.
Yeah.
And really it's about helping you create your path to profits because you have to have cash flow, which comes from sales, in order to be a profitable business. And it's a group program. There's a mix of group work and one-on-one work. And we do some training on sales conversation components. We do mindset work. And then we actually craft your script based on your business. That's where the one-on-one work comes in play. And then we come back into the group and we do role playing because we
Mm.
have to practice what we say in sales conversations, but not when it matters the most. You don't want to be
Yes.
practicing your sales conversations when you're on the call with the client because that's where
Right.
the stakes are too high. So we come in and we do that role playing, and then you get that feedback from me as well as the other participants in the group. So it's just such a beautiful process to facilitate and then witness how everybody's learning from each other. And it's awesome. We're actually starting another cohort at the end of April here. So
Oh, good.
the
Okay.
information is available at Proffit Coach, and that's PROFFIT coach.com. That's my
Okay.
website. You can find me on Facebook at Proffit Coach. And then I'm also creating a Facebook group specific to the Path for Profits. So that's going to be coming out soon. I'll provide you with the link for that so you can put it in the show notes.
Yep.
And people always ask me, I'll just kind of add this little highlight here. People always ask me, is your last name actually Proffit? And it is. I was born with that name. And hang on one second here. I was actually born with that last name. Everybody's in a Zoom call right now.
I love it. That's awesome. That's my first Zoom bomb ever. I love it.
Oh, that's so funny. That's my next appointment. But I was born with that last name. So I like to say it took me a long time to realize what my purpose was on this earth, but it was right in front of me the whole time, is
That's
helping
right.
small.
That's beautiful. I love it. Thank you, Alison. I will let you go. Thanks everybody for watching Getting to the Point with Alison Proffit, and we will see you next time. Until then, have a great day and go nail it.
Thanks, Cindy.